Hello,
organizate din
everyone. Thank you for joining the first conference organized by Star Invest. Today, we are going to discuss the annual financial results of the company entitled Star Invest and its strategy. I am Daniela, IR consultant, and I'm joined by Mr. David Canta, General Manager, and Mr. Adrian Tănase, Financial Director. Today's meeting is recorded and it will be published within the website of the company and the Bucharest Stock Exchange. We also have translation for those who want to follow the presentation in English. They can select the translation option available in the Zoom platform, the interpretation button. Please ask your questions in the Q&A section. You can ask questions throughout the entire presentation, and at the end of the discussion, the management of the company will gladly answer your questions. We encourage you to be proactive and ask questions. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. David Canta, General Manager, so that we can commence today's discussion. Thank you, Daniela, for your formal presentation. Hello, everyone. I am happy to join you in this conference. It's the first teleconference organized by our company. This is included in an effort of the management of the company to better communicate with star investors in a more dynamic manner. I am joined by Mr. Adrian Tănase. He is my colleague who joined the company in January as CFO of the group. Adrian, if you would like to introduce yourself. Yes, my name is Adrian Tănase. I have experience on the capital market, quite vast, I would say. I have worked in the buy side and middle side area in terms of investments, investor, and institutional investors that are quite strong on the Romanian market, FSN. And in the last 8 years, I activated and worked in the Bucharest Stock Exchange. It's a natural continuation of my career to join this company. I really believe in the endeavors of this company and I believe in the potential. And there is a gap on the market in terms of these products. And we need a serious, transparent institutional exposure in the real estate sector. I believe in this potential. I think we can a lot of investors from both areas, and we hope our activity will unfold and develop significantly. As David stated, what we have here today is a first step in this direction. Our initiative to efficiently communicate and transparently communicate with potential shareholders, current shareholders, and investors. It's a long process, it's an educational process, and hopefully these communications become better and better in time. I am speaking from a double standpoint. So my role as general manager of the company as well as my role of shareholder, almost 40% of Star shares belong to me. From a professional standpoint, I participated exclusively in the real estate market. I started as a consultant. That's when we learned the ropes, a good educational opportunity. And then this was the office space market was my first love in the real estate market. Of course, I activated also in other sectors in the market residential segment. I had quite significant activity in the logistics sector as well. And throughout time, I formed a group of services, a significant group that right now entails a great team of professionals who are active in the real estate services sector, project management, consultancy, property and facility management, and many other services that are included in the real estate market in Romania and in the region. Today, I am going to focus on summarizing our strategy. We prepared the document for you, of course, in a more detailed level. It is also available on the website of the company, and Adrian will cover the financial figures. And of course, then we are going to answer your questions at the end of the discussion. I know that right now we have shareholders who are at the beginning in they have even a better context. They know how the team formed and how everything started. So it started in 2021. We are going to celebrate our 5-year anniversary soon. The initiator of this project was Impact, another listed company that at a certain moment in time exited the project. I took over share package from Impact. And today I want us to continue the trajectory of the company based on a new direction and a new strategy. Our name is quite intuitive. Our mandate was the acquisition and exploitation of apartments and residential units and dividends and profit towards investors, a proxy for direct holding or alternative holding, because the history on the market was quite difficult in this regard when it came to purchase of apartments. After a more detailed analysis, we decided to move towards market sectors that have higher yield. And today we have a good foundation in terms of our thesis and our investment strategy in the office space market. This market is quite developed and it has potential. We've been we've gone through challenges, challenging time. We had the COVID pandemic. Economic wise, we are in an interesting cycle, let's call it. And we see a huge opportunity, the highest opportunity we've seen comparing to all the real estate market segments. And we really believe that Romania needs an institutional player, a local player who understands risks and who wants to operate on the long term in an efficient manner and who can execute complex transactions as an alternative to foreign capital that has entered the Romanian real estate segment. At macro level, I won't go too much into detail. We believe on the medium term and long term, this convergence trajectory, Europe and Romania, will stimulate. We have a lot of research part. It's included in the presentation actually, and you can find it online as well. This is where we try to highlight the best places where we see this convergence with impact on the real estate sector, of course. Let's go into details. So change of strategy, we are going towards the office space market, and I would like to tell you what we see in the office space market sector. So, on one hand, we have huge players who are in the defensive right now, players who consolidated large office space portfolios, and today, post-COVID, we see them relaxing a bit in terms of investment and development in this segment. Of course, core markets are gaining capital, a deleveraging segment, a lot of stakeholders who have funded by means of bonds. They achieved funding by means of bonds and are creating liquidity by means of selling assets. Other companies are in the accumulation period, who purchased and who achieved a great want to focus, we see a better focus on a niche segment of the market. So that's how we are analyzing how they are navigating their portfolio. And in terms of funding, there are question marks that we are seeing on behalf of the demand. So that's why we want to be here and activate opportunities in this regard and answer demand. Our strategy is focused on value add. For those who are familiar with the real estate term, when you purchase an asset, you purchase a building that you plan to improve by means of active asset management. Of course, on the market, there are a lot of products and great opportunities. You can, we're talking either about the full rentals, future-proof contracts and process. This is not necessarily the sector where we are active in. These types of assets are adequate for a certain type of investor. We want to move towards the market side where you have buildings with great positioning, where you have potential to increase rental capacity and level, where you can refurbish maybe those buildings in terms of sustainability principles. And by means of investment, we want to achieve energy efficiency, we want to increase quality for renters, and we so that for the purpose of creating economic value, our main focus will be on this area. And on the next slide, I'm going to empirically present and intuitively present what we are aiming in the market. So this is the polarization of office buildings. We have a lot of buildings that, although the market has been challenging, they are now being rented at full capacity, historic levels. Piazza Victoriei, for example, where in my professional history, I've never seen such a level of rental coverage. And in the predictable future, we envisage rental levels quite high for assets that have a great positioning, that are good in terms of management and administration, that are ready to move towards the future, and that are ready to for renters who are ready to pay a better rental price. And then we have buildings that are going downhill in terms of our role, I believe, to take them over, to dust them off, and to prepare them for the future, to work with good designers, refurbish them, to invest, to change equipment, to better meet brokers on the market in this regard, and by means of this asset management process to improve overall these buildings. And you can see it on our graph. You see the lines that illustrate quite well our strategy and what I wanted to mention.
Yes, I will not go through this slide. I was telling you about the experience. I would like in the following slides to explain to you what we mean by process platform shipment. In the execution of our plan and the acquisitions that we make, we're an investment platform, and the platform will help us achieve our targets. We believe very much in a structured approach and institutional approach over the market. And we believe that via this process, we can add value, create value to the investors from the prospecting side, how we value, how we negotiate, and how we make the acquisitions. and later on via management, value adding, and at the end, selling or refinancing those assets, thus having the capital for new investments. On each area, we can talk about how we do things better than the market on each sector. We know very well this market. We have a research capacity to in-house full-time researchers that cover all the market, all the buildings, all the renters. Very detailed. We have relations with the owners in the market and with potential sellers. And I think we can read into some trends a bit before uh, the rest of the players. We can assess from a technical, commercial, a building. We see the demand, where it comes from. We can configure the product uh, from the actual renters. And we have a set of companies that we coordinate. Reed Capital is one that ensures the management of this instrument from a corporate perspective. Avison Young, the commercial side, multi-management, and Optim, which ensures the technical implementation of the investment program. This is an overall view. This is for you if you want to find further details. I will lead my colleague. So let's present the financial results for 2025 to the investors. We focused on the strategy because what happened in the last year will become irrelevant to the beginning of this year. But we need to present these results. Here you can see them, a very good dynamics. We sold some assets, and David mentioned in the first part of the strategy. And all assets, all apartments generated these results from revenues, from sales. In the future, the rental revenues will dominate. And now in 2025, this 16 million lei come exclusively from selling of units. We will not deal with this. We have only one left in our portfolio. And we have these results. This net profit that we have here, the expenses are related to these assets that we sold. It was the value that they were valued as according to RAS. This disturbs the profit. We have a profit audited 1.3 million lei, and here we can see the differences between the valuation difference between when was selling and acquiring these assets. There were 2 million lei, the value, and you can see this account in our dividend proposal. And the GMS, which will be at the end of March, this includes the dividends to be distributed, but also the reserves. 4 bani per share, which is roughly 14% of the pricing now. So as a structure, as a value, this Um, Next year will not be similar to the last one at all.
Și aici un element de bilanț.
And we have some balance sheet items here.
Ce trebuie să spunem
In
aici este că
2025,
avem o poziție de lichiditate foarte bună
we have a very good
pentru că
cash liquidity position
datorată acestor vânzări, 7 milioane
due
200 de
to
mii,
these
da și dividende, dar
sales.
vom rămâne și cu dividendele
And we
propuse
will
în
see the
sumă
dividends.
de 600.000 de euro, vor rămâne și o lichiditate
600,000
adițională
euro is the value.
care să fie utilizată în achiziționarea activului pe
And
care vrem să luăm, adică
of course, there will be the
utilizarea
amounts
birouri din Polonia. Da?
to
Și cel mai
acquire
important este
the
capitalul
office
propriu care se
spaces.
apropie de 5 milioane de euro. De aici trebuie să
So
scădem din nou dividendele
Again,
pe
here we
pe
have
care le vom
to
distribui. Deci să știm că
eliminate
rămâne
the
lichiditate
dividends that we are
stabilă,
going
net
to
asset value
distribute,
metric,
that
7
so
milioane,
the
4
net
milioane
asset
de euro.
capital
Ce în
investment
spate
of 4 million
este
euro. What
legat de
lies
creditele de teren.
behind
Noi
this?
avem un teren și o să vedeți,
We have a land
o să vedeți
plot.
referire la el.
You
Singura
are
activ
going
pe
to
care îl
see a lot of
deținem pe lângă
reference to
acest
this
apartament pe
land
care
plot.
vom vinde
It's the
noaptea,
only land plot
avem
that we have in addition to that apartment that I mentioned before, 25,000 square meters in the northern part of Bucharest, assessed at 3,6 million euros. So in behind this value of 4 million, we have this land plot that I mentioned
Apoi și
before.
partea mai interesantă, aș zice eu,
Now,
este
the more
să avem un
interesting
buget,
part,
da, de venituri și
let's
cheltuieli, iar
present the budget.
un document pe care
Again,
puteți să
this
vedea
is a document
în
that you
integralitatea
can
lui, cu
analyze
graficații, cu tabelele
in
cele
its
mai importante, dar
entirety
documentul este propus din Curtea de
online.
Aprobare a
Here you
Achiziționărilor
only
de
have a
stat
brief presentation, but it is going to be, the budget is going to be approved by the
și
GMS at the
acest
end of March, as
buget
I
are
mentioned.
efectul achiziției
And this
clădirii
budget
de birouri din
relates to the
Polon
acquisition of
Șerșeni.
office
O clădire de
buildings
birouri
in
care are o
Strada
suprafață
Polona
de
in
aproximativ
Bucharest,
14 metri
an
pătrați,
office
undeva
building a total
între 9 și
surface
10.000 de
of
metri
14
pătrați.
meters,
În stânga aici avem
rented, of
zona
which you
comercială
rented
care
8,
permit vizitarea
9,000 square
ordinară
meters. Here on the left, we wanted to
de aceste
show you
clădiri,
the
adică
yield
să
that will be generated by
neutralizeze
this
faptul că
building, an
noi
yield that will neutralize the fact that we
deține
are
aceste clădiri cel
going
puțin în
to
2026
possess this building in
exact în
2026
8 luni, deci efectul
only
deținerea
for
acestui
8
building se va
months.
vedea parțial în
So
2026, este un yield
it will be
normalizat.
reflected
Da?
only
Deci
partially
noi avem
in
aici în această clădire
2026. It's a
acum,
partialized yield.
dați în chirie
Right
acest
now, we
metroplex
are
unit,
cashing
adică
in
400.000 de euro,
rentals,
da?
two
Avem o
million
finanțare
100 euro.
pentru
We
această
have a funding
clădire pe
for
care o vom
this
achiziționa la
building that we are
800
going to
milioane de euro. Dacă
acquire,
vedeți în
paying
și
18
presă
million euro. You
sau
will
în
see
documentele noastre că apare un preț al
in our
achiziției de
documents
19
that we
milioane
have
de
a
euro.
certain we have
Asta
a
este share
acquisition of
deal pe care
19
vom
million,
achiziționa
but this is a
compania, dar
share
să
deal,
știți,
so
această
we are
clădire compania deține 1 milion de euro în cont la momentul
we are
achiziției, deci
using a
prețul pe
different
care l-a plătit
company
nu este
to
validabil
acquire
pentru 1 milion de
this, and
euro.
they
Da?
also have 1 million in
Valoarea
their account. So
clădirii
that's why we have this difference. We are
este
paying
tot
80 million,
gestionată
and the value of the
asta ca
building
să fie o
is actually
clarificare
amounting to 18 million. But the 19 comes
în
from
ceea
the
ce privește
million that
suma
is
de
already in the
19,
accounts of
care
the
este
company that we
suma
are using.
tranzacției și
That's
valoarea
why you
clădirii
will
de peste
see
8 milioane
the
de euro.
transaction
Pe
19
această clădire
million.
avem un leverage
In
deja
what
pe care
concerns this
sperăm să-l
building, we
extindem de
already
2
have a
milioane de
leverage
euro.
that we are
Da?
starting
Deci
to
noi va trebui
expand,
să
2 million euro. So we are going to have
utilizăm efectiv de 10
to
milioane de euro. Pe finanțare avem
fund
metodă de
10
finanțare
million
de
euro.
5%,
Of
avem
course, in terms of
această
funding,
finanțare pe care fiți
5%, we have
acum
this funding that I
200.000 de
mentioned.
euro
So we are going
anual
to
vom fi
pay
finanțare. Aici
400,000
este și cifra
euro
pe care știu că
funding
a fost
costs,
în milioanele
financing
care ne
costs,
intrată, care va fi de
a new
1,5 milioane.
administrator
Net
that
asset
will
value
also, a
undeva peste
new
10 milioane
director
de
that
euro
would
care vine
also
la aceste clădiri și va
analyze.
rămâne un cash flow
Then we have a remaining cash flow,
operațional anualizat, să zicem, de 1.500.000 de
operational,
euro. Asta înseamnă
annualized of
raportarea investiția la equity în acest
1,550,000. So this is the
activ de
investment that I
gestionare
mentioned
automat,
regarding this asset, 10 million euro. It's
Deci asta este
so 15%.
evaluarea și efectul, în primul
This
rând,
is the
al
assessment and the
acestui plan de
effect
achiziție, care aduce un yield
of
de
such a
10%
good acquisition price. It
valoarea
brings a
totală a
yield of
activului, da? Acest 2
12%
milioane
to
împărțit
the total
la
value of the asset.
împărțit
This
la
2 million
18 milioane de
divided
euro.
by
Și efectul de
18 million
leverage,
euro,
costul de
and the
finanțare sub
leverage
yieldul
effect,
produs de
the
chirii,
funding
cifra cea mai
financing
mică
cost is
pentru dumneavoastră,
beneath
bineînțeles.
the
Efectul
yield, is
leverage de
lower
5% pentru
than the
acționari și
yield
5,5%
for our segment, and this is great for our
pentru
shareholders. So 15% yield, 15.5% yield. So this is what we believe to be a great deal and a great yield. On the right side, we explain, and this is quite interesting for you.
And this is how we will report the flows from the distribution. Up to now, the objective is to distribute 90% of the profit. And we will change this approach because one is the net profit and one is the cash flow, of course, which is attributable. There are several things, and there is a restriction to this cash flow, and it doesn't appear in the net profit. And this is where we explain it's a very relevant table for 2026. We own that building. You can see here 1.4 million euro. We have a base case, the land in the portfolio aligned in our strategy, and about the assets. We have a capex that is budgeted, investments in the buildings, and according to the strategy described by David beforehand, even including the Polono building, the institutional value added, we're looking some buildings require some improvements and are not fully rented. And sometimes those are mandatory, and this is rented 100%. Via these improvements, this capex of 250,000 euros. In 2026, there are several plans here. We want to stabilize the rent, and maybe we can also look at some higher yields from rents. So this capex, the banking loan, the 400,000, it's pro rata on 8 months, yes. The asset management commission from the 150, the net asset includes the 4 million euro. So we have to remember. So those are promised. We have a 450 million euro, and then to 14 million. So we have a net of 160,000 euros. Attributable cash flow 1.4 million euro that will be distributed to the shareholders, and we have a gross yield of 10%. Very importantly, when we look at such indicators, most cases we have funding that needs to be amortized. So, and we need to repay the principal. So we make this valuation 5% now per year, but we'll need to pay to the bank 670,000 to the bank. The principal, the 1.4, is a potential. If we had a different type of funding, so one that doesn't need to amortize the principal, and we put it at the maturity of the loan. So if we had a bullet where we had to pay only the interest, that we are not in such, or fortunately or unfortunately, we are not, and we have this amount of 267,000 euro, and we have an 8% yield in euro. Do not look at this reimbursement as a cost. This amount is not lost. We need to reimburse the bank. because we are talking about the distribution yield. There is also a capital yield. And we do not explain it here. On top of that, we will have the investors will have a capital gain from the increase of the asset of the asset. We have that 2.1 million in real estate market is indexed with inflation. So we will see an increase of the asset at least with the inflation. So, and we go there to the area of core, and we will have another gain from this, and you will see in the company, and we hope to the investors. The net asset value increases also from the reimbursement of these loans. So the shareholders have a bigger portion of that building. We are deleveraging now. We want to maintain the debt to total asset to 50%, to under 50%. So we have amortizations which will become lower, or to refinance certain amortization to have this leverage, to have the banking funding at this level. So from the 10% distributable before the principal, it's an yield you will find in the capital gain side.
Here you can see the profit and loss account based on trends. So our main presentation today targeted to present the results for 2025, and we presented them in their entirety, regardless of relevance. Our budget, again, is very important, so we want to present it. So here you have the P&L, the difference between the cash flow on the right and the P&L. Here, the CapEx disappears, and you can see depreciation appearing here. So CapEx and depreciation, and we tax, profit tax of 16%, and what else disappears? The reimbursement of the principal of the loans. So that I mentioned, and this is reflected in all of our documents, the distribution baseline will be this operational cash flow. It has a name. There's a standard at European level that we are implementing in this regard for this cash flow. What we are missing here is the corporate tax. It's this gross distribution before CapEx is included here because we want to function as a real estate trust. There is already an implementation in the parliament, a discussion regarding certain companies and taxes, and it targets that carry out their activity just as our company. It's something that's happening at global level. It's a legislative initiative, and we are waiting for clarifications, and we are waiting to see our parliament members are going to follow this trend and are going to actually implement this legislative endeavor. This structure already exists because if the law does not pass, we still have solutions, but we will have to move towards the fund area segment. So it doesn't necessarily cover what we do, but we want to remain in the corporate area. So that's the argument that we are actually bringing forward to politicians when it comes to this legislative initiative. So we need laws in the corporate segment because investors really like to have fiscal efficiency on their side. They want corporate governance. They are drawn to it, and we need iterations that support this trend.
finanțator și
So we
manager
need
mult mai intens decât, de
something
exemplu,
between
în garaj.
interactions between managers
În speranța
and
să putem să putem
investors.
distribui aceste
Hopefully, we will
yields
be able to
expuse aici
distribute these
la
yields that are
valorile
exposed
astea
here
mari superficial
as per the values that we mentioned here without paying corporate tax. Of course, the investor will have to pay the dividend tax. That is depending on their legal entity or
Ca să închei,
private
profitul, deci
entity.
avem un profit bugetar de 6 milioane
Now, a budget profit of
6
6
milioane de lei,
million,
1.200.000 de euro.
1,2 million,
Dacă pot să ne explic în slide anterior.
1,2 million in terms of estimated net
Mi-a
profit.
plăcut foarte
I
tare.
would like to
Ai acoperit
summarize
foarte multe
what
aspecte
we discussed beforehand.
foarte
Of
sensibile
course, you
pentru
covered a lot of
societate
technical aspects, and I'm sure in the Q&A session you are going to receive a
și
lot
vreau
of
să spun
questions
că
for
această tranzacție,
clarification.
prima tranzacție
But
făcută,
this transaction, this first transaction, the acquisition from Strada Polona, is a prototype transaction. It entails a lot of new aspects. So it actually goes well with our strategy. It's a stabilized building. The risks are
o îmbunătățește.
low.
Riscul de permitting, de construcție,
No
să poți
permitting
activi să
risk,
fie
no building
relativ
risk.
simplu
So the
pentru
construction should be
dintr-un punct de
simple
vedere. Din
in
alt punct de
terms of
vedere, tot ce a
improvement.
explicat astăzi
From another point
Adrian,
of
pe
view,
partea de
everything that
parametrii
Adrian
care
explained
se
today in
referă
terms of
tratatele,
parameters,
sunt exact mecanismele pe care
these are
le
the
veți vedea explicate
mechanisms,
și
precisely the
ulterior. Eu
mechanisms
vreau
that
doar să
you will
explic
see explained
tot acest aspect, pentru
subsequently.
că sunt
I
sigur
simply
că
want to
ne uităm la
explain
randament brut
it
sau gross
overall
înainte
because,
de
of course, we are
distribuție,
analyzing
randament
gross
stabilizat
yield
și ar putea să fie
before
tot felul.
distribution, after
Vreau să
the
încep de la
distribution,
imaginea
stabilized yield,
statelor.
and so on. Let's
Randamentul
start from the big
total
picture. Total
într-un
yield
astfel de
in
vehicul sau dintr-un astfel de activ vine din
such an
trei
asset,
componente, e format din
as
trei
the one I
componente.
presented,
E
comes from three
randamentul pe
components.
capitalul propriu,
One, yield
e
for owner's
spreadul
equity,
pe finanțarea bancară
the spread
și, cum a zis și
regarding bank
Adrian,
funding,
e
and
acest
as
share
Adrian
capital sau
mentioned, we
aprecierea
have this capital gain,
activului, valorii activului
capitalization of the asset, of the value of the asset in time.
din
It
compresia yield-ului
entails
care
improvement
face
of revenues, compression
principiul
of the
recrutării
yield
și
when you
aceste
are
trei
exiting the
componente
project.
îl
So
luăm în
these
colonă ca și studiu
three
de caz.
components, we are analyzing this building in Strada Polona, the case
Adrian listea
study.
12% pentru că
Adrian mentioned
după indexarea
12%
de anul ăsta și încă câteva
yield rate
modificări mergem
because after indexation that took place this year, we are going to exceed
randament de
11%
intrare. Deci, pe
as an
capitalul propriu
entry
avem
yield.
11%,
So in terms of
spreadul de la
owner's
bancă
equity,
e
we
acest
have
11%
14%.
minus
The
costul de
spread of the
finanțare,
bank is
care
minus
e
the cost
4-5%.
of contracting
Deci, mai am
the
un
loan,
randament de,
4
ajuns în
5%.
6% de acolo.
So we have a
Iar
yield of
ulterior,
6%
când
coming from that side
distribuie,
of the bank.
mai ai această
And then when
apreciere
you sell the
care
building, you have
anualizat,
this appreciation,
amortizat
this
pe patru ani.
capitalization that
Dacă
represents
vom
an
putea
additional
să
couple
replicăm
of
o
percentages. If
tranzacție,
we
tranzacții
can
de amploare și
replicate
profitabilitate,
transactions
veți
at
vedea
this
că randamentele
profitability level,
sunt
you are going to see that the
aproape
yields
randamente
are
de real estate developer cu
almost at
riscul
the level of real estate developer
investment
yields
în active
in
stabilizate.
terms of
Și cu asta
investment
finalizez.
in
Ne uităm la
stabilized
randamentul de
assets.
5,
So I want to
15
conclude
de
with this.
5%
If we
menționat
analyze the
la
15.5% yield
în
mentioned
stânga,
beforehand,
acest randament,
as you can
acesta
see on the
reprezintă
left, this yield
randamentul pe
includes
capitalul propriu, la care se adaugă acest
yield
spread
on
din
owner's
finanțare,
equity.
da?
You add this
Randamentul
spread from funding,
minus costul de
the
finanțare,
yield of the
dar nu am previzionat aici, în acest randament, și o eventuală
minus cost in
apreciere
this yield, a
a
potential
building. Da? Deci,
capitalization
sper un pic să
building in time.
clarifice
So
peisajul acesta
hopefully
de
this
total return,
clarifies
when
the
we earn
overall
return. Și ne uităm
image.
dacă
Where do we
distribuind
get this return? Where does
8%,
it come from? And
nu
even if we
indicatorul
distribute
principal
8%,
din punctul nostru de
this is
vedere pe care
not the
trebuie
main
să
indicator
ne
from
uităm.
our
Da,
perspective
suntem
that
un produs de
we should
dispersie
analyze or
financiară,
focus on.
merge
Yes,
restul
we are, of
din
course,
profit, avem această
targeting
viață prin
distribution. We are
constructiv.
distributing a large part of the
Ne
profit. We
reglementăm și
have this
sperăm că
obligation
acest
in
randament
our
să devină cât
articles
se
of
poate de
incorporation.
impactant
Hopefully, as Adrian stated, this legislative initiative will also take place and it will force us to have these distribution criteria that I mentioned. But in addition to distribution, we also have to take into account that there's another side of the yield that is exposed from other points of view.
Here, of course, we don't have the capital increase. This does not materialize just because it will be recognized because such an instrument will have the NAV without selling that asset, and it will be reported by us regularly. And our NAV of 14 million will increase in time. We can recognize, you can recognize these capital gains in the share price because the investors, when they value the share, will look at this distribution yield that comes from operational revenues, and they look at the NAV of the company and they compare it to the share price of the company. So they will be, it won't be a problem to decollate the two when you will have a net asset value of over 20 million. When you have a good management, transparent and efficient, the share price will follow that NAV and will recognize a bit of this capital in the share price without any selling this real value, and the effects or all the efforts to improve the asset, and the shareholders, the potential ones, will also have that value added. And of course, will be visible in the share price. So we have this distribution plus the variation of the asset in the pricing of the shares. So for some people who don't know a lot about real estate, compares this product with Fidelis. Let's look at that comparison. Fidelis has a 6% on 10 years, which is the most relevant value from this table for the Fidelis for 2026. It's the 10% from this table. So we don't incur costs from the reimbursement of the banking. So we're looking at this 10% and compared to 6%. And that is not, it's not taxed. We hope that this, our yield, will not be also taxed. And we will see also the evolution of the share price. So we have 1 million euro for a share issuance, 1/10 years. Yes, Fidelis is a very good benchmark. It's very visible. I don't want people to judge this comparison, and it is risk-free. This instrument has some risks when compared to Fidelis, but we believe risk return is a ratio is better than treasuries. So a specific feature.
Nu sunt inflation protected.
They're not inflation protected, the bonds. You have an annualized coupon, but at maturity, 3, 5, 10 years, you get only the principal back. And if you have inflation, it will value less. Whereas in the investments that we perform, we're talking about revenues that are annually indexed by inflation in euro. And we are talking about a correlation of the value of the asset in time with inflation. So if the input for a building, workforce, material cost, on the medium term, it will be reflected also in the building's value. This force of the inflation that you cannot see the same in the bonds. It's a different kind of investment. So, and the last parenthesis, as a real estate instrument, we should be very different to shares because the volatility is higher. The long-term yields of shares is higher, statistically speaking, but also the volatility is the same. And this slide is the first start. You need to see where are the rental revenues, how much the capex is, and this is the indicator that you have to value better. But we have these are all the costs, the management fee towards the administrator. We have lower costs. This is the overall profit. You see these flows of for amortization. It will be very easy to assess, and we want you to feel the value of the buildings in the portfolio. We still have 10 minutes. Let's talk about the sharing risk for acquisition. The prospectus was published today. 12 million euro is the value. And we have it ongoing up to 19th of March. 10th of December 2025, the shareholders can be registered. And then following 19th of March, in order to manage the preference right, Swiss Capital is the broker, the intermediary of this operation. Here you have some details about the shares, 249 million ordinary shares, a nominal value 0.2 lei, and subscription price 0.24 lei. We want to acquire this building. This is the main objective. I will not go into these figures because there was a reference towards to our research capacity. These charts have been produced by us, and we have a company that is very close to us on that. It's an automated approach. It's a competitive advantage to have this research department to know all the buildings, the rentals, the conditions in the market, and this team will will have all these chats available for you. This is Avison is a part of the group, so this is exclusively from them. They produced this chart and lots of them. So we have this area so that we can analyze and create this pipeline. We believe that this will be only, but we have a very serious capacity to identify the opportunities in the market.
Here you can see our portfolio again, simply to mention them. This is what happened in the past. We had, as I mentioned, the company was born with these 14 apartments and 26 parking spaces. They were all sold. What we didn't include here, their acquisition price or registered price. It was 2 million euro. The sale price was 2.5 million euros. So operational revenues, they were rented, they created revenue for the company, and then they were sold. This is a value that is not included in the report. Then we had a great deal in Cluj for this company for its shareholders. It was purchased. We purchased it at 1,600,000, and of course we sold it for 2 million. This
zile
was
și avem
in our
acest teren
possession for
frumos
1 year, and we have this land
este
plot,
în
25,000
portofoliul
square
nostru și
meters. It's in
aici
our
vrem
portfolio, and we intend
să
to
repoziționăm sau să vindem și
reposition it or sell it.
pentru care avem un preț de achiziție de 2.300.000
And
cu
we acquired it
evaluarea
for
de
2,300,000, and the assessment price, the evaluation price, amounts to 3,600,000
Aici am
euro.
câteva slide-uri despre
600,000 euros.
următoarea
And here you have pictures about the project Polona Shai Shop. This will become the business center. This is pending acquisition right now.
Perfect. Daniela, dacă
Great.
sunt
Daniela,
întrebări
if there are any
în chat sau
questions
la Q&A,
in the Q&A section or in the chat section, yes, we do have a couple of questions that we received, and those who want to ask questions, they can do this in the Q&A section. First question relates to the rate of recovery of invested capital in the strategy entitled value added strategy. So what is the recovery rate?
La ora 2 și 16 minute.
At
Sperăm că pe parcurs
so we received this question at quarter past
vreți să
2.
mergem la
I
această
hoped
întrebare, dacă
I
mai aveți
hope
ceva
that we
întrebări
managed to answer the question
Da, cel
throughout our
puțin din
presentation. I
procedura,
believe
cel
we
puțin
did.
fără să facem,
Okay, so
fără să
without
facem
necessarily
capital
referencing
gain, da?
capital gain,
Acel yield, gross yield pe cel puțin pe
we
Polona
have the
15%.
yield for the Polona
Fără să
project of
facem
15%,
referire
without
la
referencing any
de
other recovery rates and so on.
introducem și un
Of course,
CAPEX,
we are going to introduce a
distribuționarea
CAPEX,
activității
so let's say
doar din
operational distribution, 10 years, for a 10-year period. That would be the answer. Another question sent at 20 past 2. Annual dividends distributed will exceed a rate of 8%. If you would like to reiterate the answer or
nu asta,
other
nu
details,
intrăm
no.
în detalii.
I wouldn't
Hai
go
mai
further
încă
into detail.
încă o dată, dacă am
So again,
beneficiat de finanțări de tip bullet,
if we benefit from funding, we are going to have dividends that can be distributed. But right now, we have great perspectives
astfel încât la
for
jumătatea
principal
perioadei
loans and hopefully to achieve. All right, this is also based on our analysis. The distribution will be around this 8% threshold. We have to analyze. We have to analyze the exposure towards the bank. We have to analyze the costs of value in terms of yield based on the costs, because the equity portion that will be held in the building will be higher and higher. And of course, the principal of the bank loan will also play a role. Another question refers to the main argument for you to convince a potential investor to invest in Star shares. We explained, I hope.
Domnul Mare să fie convins.
I hope you are convinced now.
Care este risk-free, da?
So, risk-free,
Pornind de la asta,
dividends.
credem că
Just
undeva
mentioning
la
these two aspects. So, good yield. We have
mai bun decât
13% yield, 12% yield. This is great. This is better. And you saw capital gain, distribution. And I want to compare that 10% before reimbursement of the principal, 6%. And capital gain, I think this all adds up to a great image. Investment in shares now on the other side. I want to talk about shares that are a bit riskier. We're talking, of course, about real estate developers. One Impact. We are not like them. They are developers, they have different stakes at hand, they have different targets, they are building, they have a different type of exposure, they have a huge workforce and exposure on construction materials, exposure related to a lot of other things from the real estate market. The yield that we offer cannot be compared to the yield offered by other companies that deal with this entire operational flow with development and so on. We have this pass-through component. We take money and we move it forward to investors. But a company such as One or Impact, they have different operational flows, they have different exposures, And of course, the yield is different as compared to us. It might be higher because their exposures are a lot higher. So let's not compare Star Invest with one. Let's not compare Star Invest with Impact. They are different things. Yes, we act on the same sector of real estate sector, but they do things differently. We do things our way. I would like to also add to this answer.
Răspuns tactic și pe termen scurt.
So, for a short term
Dacă face cineva
perspective,
un
if
calcul simplu,
someone calculates
valoarea activului net pe
the value
acțiune
of net asset
a
per
Star astăzi e de
share of Star
0,35,
is
care este
0.35, this is
prețul
reflected
pe care îl vedem în
in the
piață,
price that we see on the market.
discount, într-adevăr, suntem în început și ăsta e
So there is a
argumentul
discount there.
așa foarte banal și foarte simplu.
This is to put it very simply, but I think we're very discounted. And two, on the medium term, this first acquisition that we are envisaging,
mediu, dacă e să nu mai
on a medium term,
printr-un follow-up de încă două,
we
trei
can
tranzacții.
confirm this
Arată-
as a follow-up
arată
after
foarte bine.
2, 3 more transactions, but this
Iar
is
pe
looking
termen lung,
great.
bineînțeles,
And of course, on the long term, you are investing in the talent and capacity and professionalism and reputation of the team, and in the alignment that the company and management has with you as an investor. We mentioned at the beginning of the call, I already am a shareholder in the company. I announced my intention to participate with a substantial amount, minimum 2 million euro. I am aligned with the investors for the long-term goals, and Adrian as well, in many, many aspects. And we are only at the beginning. I would summarize. If someone, when allocating capital, also has real estate, then you should consider us. Bonds and other instruments, of course, but if you want real estate, I would bet on Star.
În continuarea mesajului tău,
Now,
Iri,
to
mai
continue
avem
your
o
message, we
întrebare.
have one
Ați
question.
anunțat planul
You
privind
announced
transferul
your
în piața
plan to
principală
transfer on
în
to the
viitor.
main
Care
market
sunt
in the
obiectivele
future.
voastre
What are
principale
your
până
main
acum?
objectives
Ce
up
tipuri de
until then?
investitori
What kind of
targetați
investors
în
are
perioada
you
următoare? Ce
targeting in
planează
the
să
next
urmeze acest
period? And what are your plans in this regard?
Cred că o să împărțim răspunsul.
I think we're going to share, divide the response. A long-term plan,
Un instrument, un
we
vehicul
want to create a vehicle, an instrument, a scaled vehicle, diversified vehicle,
prin clădiri, prin număr de chiriași,
by means of buildings, number of
și care
renters,
să ne permită
that
și
will
noi să
allow
avem,
us
sau să îmbunătățim
to create or
infrastructura
improve
existentă și să
existing
performăm
infrastructure and to
pe
perform
termen lung
at a
trebuie să
higher
fim
level.
mari.
So
Dacă
on
fim
the
mari,
long term, we have to be big.
cred că trebuie
In
să
order
fim
to be
în
big,
piața celor mari.
you have to be on the market, present on the main market. We have to move towards the main market.
Am început,
We
bineînțeles,
started, of
niște
course,
demersuri
certain processes to prepare ourselves for this transition. I don't know if we can commit to a timeline right now, but the main purpose to go to the main market is to have access to institutional investors who are obligated, who have restrictions, or who simply want to target a company on the main market, who want IFRS reporting and so on, a lot of criteria. And on the long term, you want to have a large company with liquidity so that you can check the indexes and so on. So this is our intention and this is our need on the long term.
Yes. And we're going back to the opportunity we see. There was a reference that the foreign capital from Western Europe and US is being withdrawn. We can see that for certain reasons. We want to activate the local capital. So yes, we believe that from the retail or institution, the local capital is underinvested in real estate in this manner. We want to attracted and um, attracted and on the real estate, and we need to be financed by local capital. We address the retail area right now because we don't have the institutional side, and we will go to the regulated market. So, because now we're on aero, we will simulate that and we'll see in the medium term to go to the regulated market, to have IFRS reporting and to talk to the bigger investors from the local market. And we're looking also the regional side, the pension funds. We need to, first of all, the local ones. Our product is tailored also towards their strategy. And of course, we can look at the region in Poland, in Hungary, Czech Republic, and we would like to attract investors from those countries to invest on the real estate market in Romania. Yes, the Romanian yields on this deal and on future deals are still superior to the ones in Prague. Daniela, we went a bit over
Da, mulțumim
the
frumos
time
tuturor
limit.
participanților
Thank you
pentru
to all
prezență.
participants
Vă
for
reamintim că
being
înregistrarea și
here.
prezentarea vor fi disponibile
The
în paginile
recording and the
site-ului companiei.
presentation
Dacă
will
aveți
be available
contact,
on the
întrebări, informații
company
și date de
website.
contact
Of course,
ale
you can find
companiei
the
disponibile
contact
inclusiv
details
la
of the
Bursa de
company
Valori.
available
Puteți
also on the
reveni și prin
Bucharest
mail dacă sunt
Stock
întrebări
Exchange. So
suplimentare
if
după
you
ce
have
vedeți încă o dată
further
toate materialele și prin
further
discuția
questions, you can contact us via email. Why were the apartments in portfolio not rented for a long time? The contract, the initial one, was terminated before the deadline. We had a 5-year contract, and after a certain amount, it was terminated preemptively. So they have a very high standard, and we didn't have the investment appetite to valorify them via rental. They are on the market. We hoped to sell them faster, but as you can see, those apartments were 4-bedroom apartments. These will take a more time. We went through a period lower marketing, so the liquidation period was a bit longer than we expected, but we sold them in the green on the profit, and it was a decent investment. You look at the profit from the sales, the revenues that were generated via rental as an investment. It wasn't really bad, but it doesn't respond to our strategy. And there is another question: do you expect the capital increase to be fully placed? There are certain parameters that can change. We don't need the whole amount to close this deal. We can do that with a partial capital increase to cover the equity need to close the transaction. We're talking about Polono. If we gather the minimum funding, we will declare the share increase as valid. We will not keep the money in the account. We have a very good leverage. If we don't put up the whole amount, we don't need the whole amount. If there is enough to close the transaction, we would be very happy to see that.
A mai apărut o
And there is
întrebare.
another question. Are you looking at investment in logistic spaces? This vehicle that you're seeing will be loyal to this new strategy, and if no changes appear in the following years, we will consolidate a portfolio of office spaces. We are looking at other real estate market segments, logistics. We can see some opportunities there with different drivers, each of them, each of these segments. But for this vehicle, we do not target other market segments. If we want to offer other terms to the investors, there will be probably a certain set of instruments to the investors, a different one. From my experience as a consultant, what I saw at the institutional level, the investors want specialized vehicles and they want to allot their capital on the sectors that they want to do, not for you to make that diversification for them. We have a vanilla product in office on this vehicle, and then, of course, in time, we will consider other products. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your patience and commitment. And I don't think for everybody, I'm an investor with 20% from rate, 10% for this 10 for this video conference and professionalism. Congratulations. This is what the message were stating. And this is the reaction of the participants, of the presenters. Thank you everybody for participating. Have a nice day. Bye.